The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Thomas Sanjurjo. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Dom.
And Jack Barazzini. Hey, Jack.
Hey, Dom.
I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you are sure to enjoy that we'll be talking about in a second as I pull it up in front of me because I didn't write a script for today. So I'm pulling it up, and it is PrayStation Portable, of course. PrayStation Portable is an excellent resource for helping you learn how to pray with the church, the Divine Office, or Liturgy of the Hours. We've been doing this podcast for nigh on 18 years. It's a very long-lived podcast.
Nice. It's been around.
Yes, and Jeff, who's been managing it all this time, is an amazing person. He's been doing this out of the goodness of his heart and his love for the Lord. And so you want to check this out wherever fine podcasts are found, called PrayStation Portable, or at sqpn.com/PSP.
So I hear what you're saying to us is that we need to build a wheel for you so you can spin the wheel at the beginning of the shows. Actually, and recommend one of the other podcasts.
Actually, I have just a little behind the scenes. I have an Airtable that I use to manage all of our shows, and in the Airtable is a list of shows to promo, and I have in every different podcast, like Secrets of Tech, I go through the list. Every week you could, if you went back and checked, it's in an order, and it's like just so I don't repeat it. But yeah, it's there. So I could randomize, I suppose, but that might be kind of odd times, because random numbers can mean the same thing comes up 3 times in a row. It's still random.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into today's show, and I want to start with a little bit of listener feedback, and this came from Sean on our YouTube channel, where you can listen to the show on YouTube. And Sean writes, I had my doubts about this channel with the religious connotation. I'm happy to report that although they have a little there, it's not the whole case. They're pretty great. Bravo. So thanks, Sean. It's a bit of a backwards compliment, but I'll take it.
It's funny though, because I recommended The Secrets of Middle Earth to someone the other day, and they asked, do I have to be Catholic to listen to this podcast? And I'm like, of course you don't have to be Catholic, but Tolkien was Catholic, so
There you go. Yeah, we are checking your ID before you can download the podcast. No, I mean, and that's the thing is we are Catholic, and we are unapologetically Catholic, and our Catholic perspective will come out sometimes, but we discuss the same sorts of things that other people are interested in. We like those things too, whether it's tech and Linux and Mac and Middle Earth and, Lord of the Rings and in Star Wars and Star Trek. And so we talk about that stuff too, but we just come from our own perspective. So, and maybe you'll enjoy that. So welcome everyone. So let's talk about our main topic for today, which is the idea of curating your social media for mental and spiritual health. Now, that may sound like an odd idea that social media can be at all useful for your social and mental and spiritual health. But, we know these days that so much of online culture can be pretty toxic. And so you're battling that in the ways that people are unkind to each other. But then there is also the other bad influences, the ways we compare ourselves to other people in social media. People are, whether it's an authenticity issue, but also the ways that the social media companies manipulate us. They're trying to run their business and keep eyeballs on their product. That's how they make money. And so they're trying to manipulate us to keep using their stuff. And so it's kind of a battle, isn't it? To use the products without being used by them. And I think that's part of mental and spiritual health. Well, what do you all think of when you think of the idea of maintaining your mental and spiritual health with regard to social media?
A lot of avoidance, honestly.
Yeah.
It's taking a step back. I think authenticity is the biggest issue that you encounter, though, when you're dealing with social media, where you and if you know somebody in real life and also have their social media account, sometimes it can be kind of shocking the person that comes out on the social media account and the difference between that and the person that you know on a day-to-day basis.
That was one of the things my wife said when we were dating, and had my blog back in the day. And she says, "You're a very different person on your blog than you are with me." And that was a kind of a wake-up call. Like, I shouldn't be a different person in different places. I should be me authentically. And do I like the me that I am online? Would I like me if I ran into me, online like that? And that's a big aspect of how I behave now online.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So how do you think social media can affect your mental and spiritual health? I mean, what are some of the ramifications for our mental and spiritual health when it comes to it? Like we've talked recently about teens and social media, but I think it affects all of us, right?
I think a big part is it gives you a very skewed view of your locus of control. That's something I dealt a lot with, especially when I was going through a lot of mental health struggles. It's so easy just to fall down rabbit holes on the internet of rage and anger, and just you feel like you have to be upset about everything, and also somehow you being angry about something and talking about it online is going to somehow change it, rather than just ruining your day and potentially ruining other people's days because you're just yelling at people on the internet. I think that's a big one, is that we tend to just overinflate our effect on things, and also what other people even think about what we're saying.
And just how important social media itself is. Like, as if
being
right, if we can be right on Twitter, it will make the world a better place. If we can win an argument on Twitter, we make the world a better place.
Well, and then by design, these platforms, engagement is designed around those kind of enraging items, right? So it's an item that's nice and everybody responds to, like, oh, that's great. Doesn't generate as many comments and as much vitriol, and there's not as much interaction if there's not an argument going on, and that's bad. That's inherently flawed. That's an underlying flaw of the system itself.
Imagine a bar, right? That its premise was, if we make more beer sales if we get people angry in the bar. And so we do things that intentionally enrage people in a bar where people are drinking. It doesn't, like, in any other context, this is a bad thing. Like, we succeed when people get enraged. I mean, there are other types of engagement that get engagement. Like, I notice anytime someone posts about a death or a tragedy, that always rises to the top, or a wedding or a birth or that sort of thing. Those sorts of things tend to rise up, but you don't see those things as often as you see someone being really ticked off at something in the news. And you don't get it nearly as much back and forth in comments and that sort of stuff. And that's what really drives the online. Now, that doesn't mean that's what social media has to be. And that's what we're going to be talking about, is how do we use social media, but do it in such a way that it protects our mental and spiritual health, because this sort of stuff has effects on both our mental health, but also our spiritual health, our soul, our spirit. So I want to go through a few things that we can do, and a few steps we can take that will kind of help us figure out the best ways to do this. And the first thing really to do is to stop and define your intentions. Why am I using social media? What am I here for? So what sorts of things are we going to be looking for when we ask this question of ourselves?
I think a big thing is, like you were talking about with authenticity, is that don't view yourself as a brand that you have to promote, and use it to actually engage with communities that you want to engage with. Because if you have like 1 million friends on Facebook and it's mostly people you don't interact with in real life, do you really care about impressing those people, or do you want to start focusing on curating who you're following and what you're looking at more to have actual authentic connection, rather than just feeling like you're sending stuff out into the void and you have to come across a particular way?
Yeah. I think a lot of times people they're looking to social media for community, just connection, people to talk to. Other people are looking for information or edification. I know my wife uses, she's a stay-at-home homeschool mom who's a bit of an introvert. So social interactions in person are rare and difficult, draining. And so she uses her social media to connect with other like-minded women like herself and share things about poetry and art and music and writing and, that sorts of edifying stuff. That's a laudable use. So I think that's the first thing is to really think about what is it why am I here? Why and look at each of your social networks. Why am I on Twitter? Why am I on Facebook? Why am I on Instagram? What am I looking for in these places?
Yeah. And I think too, like, be clear about the definition of that when you start. And it's not bad to say that you're getting online to form a community. And I think there's kind of a stigma holding over from that, like why are you getting online to meet people, go out in real life and meet people, touch some grass, but the reality is that the world we live in is so distributed that a lot of the support that you can get can be from people that are online. I can say that through the depression that I went through, it was the online community that I had that was the best community for me at that point, that I needed to reach out to people and had people to reach out to, that I was able to connect with and really get information from and learn from and grow through that experience. And that's because I had cultivated, a like-minded group of people that were edifying, but also challenging, that were willing to, disagree with me but in a kind way, not right. Like shut me down, but to say, hey, maybe you're going about this wrong. Maybe you need to think about this way, or provide resources, so there's nothing wrong with it. And I think that we have to be really careful to say that saying that the reason that you're getting on social media to be social, that's not a bad reason. What I do think is a bad reason is replacing your news outlets with social media. Yeah. And that's the one I think a lot of people need to avoid, is don't say this is where I'm going to start getting my news from, because that's not a good idea.
Because the algorithms are designed to feed you the things that reinforce your outrage. Because again, like we said, they're about outrage. So they're going to feed you a very, very curated, in a bad way, form of the news. I encounter this a lot when I talk with people who have sometimes similar but different political outlooks and cultural outlooks, and then as well as people who have very different outlooks. And the way that they think the world is going, the way things are happening in the world, is very different from the way I see the way things are going in the world. And even the way someone who has very similar outlook as I do, but a little different, even we have received very different kinds of news. And it's dangerous when the way we understand the world around us is siloed so much. And that's why one of the things I am always doing is I consult, and we talked about this actually a bit ago in an episode, is I get my news from a variety of sources. I get the Boston Globe, which is a very liberal newspaper, and I get from the Boston Herald, which is for Massachusetts, a somewhat conservative paper. And I follow, different news sources online, the 1440 newsletter, which is a very neutral source, and the conservative sources. I get my news from a bunch of different places, and somewhere in there is truth. So I think that's the important thing. Yeah, don't get your news, your understanding of the world, mostly from social media. That's a good point. Yeah. So the next thing to do then, once you understand why you want to use social media, is evaluate how you're currently using it. And it's important to be honest, because all of this only works if you're honest with yourself. And so how much time do you spend on it? Which platforms are you engaging with? How do they make you feel? Recognize the negative aspects of using these platforms. How much is too much? And what are the bad patterns we need to avoid? Like what are bad ways of using social media?
I think one of them, at least in my personal experience, and this was mostly with Twitter, is following people in particular communities who they may be reliable in what they're saying, but they put such a negative spin on it that it just generates more of that. And then honestly, I would say if you're following someone, and you like what they're saying, you don't have to engage with other people in the comments, because that's where a lot of the problems are. So even if it's a community or a particular person that is edifying and good to follow, a lot of the times, no matter what you look at, the comments are going to be where the problem is. So
yeah, the
be
comments,
careful with those.
Yeah, the comments, apart from our comments in SQPN, the comments are the worst part of the internet of anything. Newspaper sites, YouTube, social media. Yeah, I agree. That can be really bad.
Yeah, as soon as you just send down in the comments, all bets are off.
Stay out of the comments.
The other bad habit to realize is to track your time on these apps. There are ways to track like overall time, but also track when you're tending to them as well. Is it a downtime thing? Do you have a particular time you're engaging with them, or is it any time you're free, you're pulling out your phone and checking? That can be very dangerous.
With checking these things first thing in the morning, or let's be honest, in the bathroom. You know what?
Yep.
Yeah. I found, so in complete honesty, I found myself spending too much time scrolling Twitter, scrolling Instagram, scrolling Facebook, doing me no good. Like the short video things, the reels or the YouTube shorts. I never downloaded TikTok because I knew therein lies danger. So just don't even go there. But even the other ones are the same way, and they're designed to just keep you scrolling. And it's like, why is my leg asleep? You know what I mean? Because you've been in there too long. Stop scrolling. Yep. And so I just got to the point where I said, you know what? This may be TMI, but I'm going to read a book if I need to be in there for more than a few minutes. I'm not going to look at my phone first thing in the morning. I'm not going to look at my phone at the dinner table. These sorts of things. Or when I'm, if I'm out, God forbid, if I'm out on a date with my wife, don't scroll stuff while you're at the dinner table with it. Look at each other, talk, and I'm not pointing fingers at anyone else. I'm talking about like me and bad tendencies that I've caught myself in the past. So, and then, recognize the negative aspects of even the different platforms. Twitter, I've almost cut out just because I have a FOMO problem, whereas I feel I'm a completionist. I don't want to miss any tweets. So I will, I'm 3 days behind. I need to read 1,400 tweets. No, I don't. I don't really. I shouldn't. Instagram can be good, but there are corners of Instagram which are very bad. And the algorithm, sometimes, I mentioned this before, the algorithm sometimes knows that you're a man and starts to show you things. And it's, you need to avoid that, gentlemen. You need to, as soon as it starts to show you things, you need to recognize the pattern and get out of it. So,
and it's okay to say if there's a particular platform that is either a particular occasion of sin for you, or if it's just not a good use of your time, it's okay to not use particular platforms. Like I got rid of Facebook a long time ago, and I don't really miss it. And I've honestly found Discord to be one of the best ones, because the communities there are all intentional. And so when you're on a Discord, I'm a member of different groups, and like with like the SQP, if I can remember how to speak, SQPN one is really good. There's another one like for specifically retro tech or like some of the AI art ones. Everyone is there for a particular purpose. And so it isn't just a fire hose of everyone's political opinions or vitriol and stuff. It's people are there with a particular interest, and then you talk about that. And I found that to be a really good way to use it.
And they tend to be very well moderated too. That's been my experience, at least in the communities I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they aren't, time to go find.
Right.
And that's actually the next point, which is feel free and be ready to unfollow or mute accounts that don't align with your goals for mental and spiritual health. Leave platforms, leave Discord communities or Reddit communities or what have you, and unfollow people. Or even mute them, including people who are family. I'm sorry, but if you have toxic people in your family who only drive you to bad thoughts and stress and anger and still various things like that, almost all platforms now, I think, have a way to mute someone without unfollowing them. without, or unfriending them or whatever the term is for that platform. I use this liberally around the time of elections. I will give people 30-day silences, and then when the 30 days is up, they pop up again, and I say, "Are you going to be good now?" I don't say it to them out loud. I say it to myself rhetorically, and then very often it's, "Nope, not ready yet." Back in the hole you go. So yeah, I think it's very important to be ready. Like, how do we identify the people that need to be muted or unfollowed? Like, what do you do to what's the criteria that you use?
My criteria is first of all, if they're just going to start saying insulting, like hateful things about people, that's an automatic mute. I honestly mute pretty much anything political because I just don't want to see it or engage with it. Even if I agree with it, it's not what I'm there for. And sometimes there are people who, even if I really enjoy them in real life, they just post way too much on social media. And so I mute them just because of the sheer volume, not because I dislike them, but I don't need every update.
If you spend time crafting responses, that's a good indicator you should probably mute that person.
Yes.
It's one of those, if you write it and then you think about it and then you delete it and edit it, or you reread it a couple of times, that's probably a good indicator you should not be engaging with that person.
Yes.
People that I tend to even not accept follow requests, like if someone wants to friend me on Facebook, I'll look at their page, and if I see lots of political stuff, that's a no follow. That's a no friending. I'm sorry. Again, even like you said, even if I agree with you, if they post lots of kind of, this sounds pejorative, and maybe it is, but clergy religious stuff, like content free religious stuff, like sort of empty, pictures of angels, and God loves you, and I know God loves me, and I'm glad that God loves me, and God bless you for sharing that with people, but I just don't. I know that, and I don't need if that's all they post, and that's the thing is, I'm looking to be friends with or follow people who post things that are edifying, that lift me up, that build me up, that because I hope that I'm doing the same for them, and that's why they want to follow me. So I think that's a big thing, is to how do we identify people that inspire and educate and uplift us? And I think that's one of the things is. When you're thinking of following someone, look at their content and say, what do they post? What sorts of things do they have to talk about? And do they more than not, because we all have our, moments, but they more often than not post things that are uplifting and positive?
Yeah. And I think you can also look at it too, in the perspective of, does this person engage in multiple things? Because, I think one of the worst things you can have is a person who has one track on their social media, and even possibly if it agrees with you, they've gone in with that branding mentality, right? Like, this is my brand on social media, and it's probably not the best to engage with them unless it's a specific, like Twitter, where it's like, this person is going to be posting these topics, because Twitter's more of like a speaker out rather than a communication back and forth kind of thing. But yeah, like on Facebook, if you have somebody that's like one track mind on Facebook, it's probably best to avoid that kind of person. And then the other thing I want to say about this too is unfollowing someone on Facebook is not refusing to be their friend.
Right. You can unfollow
so
without,
never. Yeah.
That's true. There's several levels. You can mute, you can unfollow, which means you don't see their stuff in your feed, but you can still be friends. And then there's friends. And the only thing that they'll see is if you unfriend them. The other stuff they don't know. And the other thing too is I don't want to give the impression that you should only follow or friend people who you agree with on everything. I think what you need is just, you need people who you can disagree and not get into fights with. Like, you can have different outlooks on things. And I follow people, I'm friends with people. We don't talk about politics or culture issues or other things like that, because we share other interests that we can engage with and enjoy together. And I think that's an important thing that we've lost. I always go back to the 1980s when Tip O'Neill, the former Speaker of the House, a very liberal Democrat, and Ronald Reagan, very conservative Republican president, could sit down and have a beer together and genuinely enjoy each other's company. A thing I cannot imagine in today's world, and that's the sort of thing we've lost that we need to build up again in our own lives, is the ability to be friends with and engage with people who we disagree with on important things, but it's okay, and enjoy other things. There's actually this one guy on Twitter who I'm not on Twitter much anymore. And this is the one thing one of the things I miss about Twitter is following him. And he's kind of a politics guy, but every Saturday he does a thing where he is an expert on cars, identifying old cars, like say pre-1975 vehicles. He can take a picture that has a bumper and a part of a wheel and tell you what the make, model, and year of that car is. Like, he is just a savant. And people send him their pictures of their old family photos of people with cars, and he'll identify the car, and that helps identify when the photo was taken and maybe where and that sort of thing. And I always enjoyed seeing him do this. And even though I didn't necessarily agree with, he's kind of vitriolic in his politics, but this sort of thing I kind of liked. And I'm like, I just ignore the other stuff, but this sort of thing builds me up. I like this. This is a good thing. And so I continue to follow him, although I would generally mute him during the week and then follow him on Saturdays. But so that's the sort of thing I think we're talking about. I'm trying to think of like other ways to identify good social media accounts to follow. And I think the only other thing to do is ask other people and see who people that we admire for having good social media presence, who they follow. I think that's a kind of a good thing.
There are a lot of good accounts that you can find where it'll be a particular person, but they'll have a focus on like, I'm going to post public domain art or interesting, obscure facts. Or there's one called 70s sci-fi art that I really like on Instagram. And he just posts photos of retro vintage, like pulp, like sci-fi book covers and concept art from old movies and stuff. And it's nice when you find something where it's actually going to be giving you something interesting and it's content, and it's not just I made a sandwich again, or a hot take on whatever's going on in the world.
There's a guy he's on all the platforms, but he does these short videos. But I see him on Instagram, and he takes very old home recipes, like the 3 ingredient chocolate cake that doesn't have chocolate in it or something, and he'll make them and see if it's really good. And like, he made it, what did he make? A cake once that had like 7-Up in it and flour and an egg or some crazy thing like that. And it was like, and it's like kind of fun because it's kind of bombastic, and as these sorts of things really work well with people who are kind of flamboyantly, crazy on camera. And it's kind of fun to see him make these things. And it sometimes makes me want to like try them out, because does that really work? But yeah, you're right. I mean, there are people who have these very particular things that they like to do, that they're being this little spark of light in the world with their very particular passion. And yeah, find those people. That's a good one. So another point to make here is to engage mindfully. So be intentional. Set boundaries on when and where we use social media and particular platforms, and avoid mindless scrolling. That's a big one. I've mentioned before that a lot of these platforms, like Instagram, I know, has a timer. You can set session timers. So when you're on for a particular amount of time, it'll say, hey, do you want to quit now? And it'll always allow you to keep going if you want, because that's their business. And then it has a daily timer. If you exceed the daily time limit, it will tell you, you've reached your daily time limit. And it's up to you to be a person in control and to quit at that point. But it's a reminder, and I kind of like that. So set boundaries on when and where you'll use social media, maybe specific time slots, like at lunch, I will look at my Facebook for 20 minutes, something like that.
Pretty much every smartphone now has tools for dealing with your screen time, and you can set timers on individual apps. Something my wife actually does is to cut down on her social media. She deleted all the actual apps off her phone, and she just uses it in the browser, because that makes it less convenient. And so you have to go through more steps to actually get to it. And then she said on those individual websites, she set the timer so it still works even if you're just using the browser.
Right. That's actually what my wife did. She deleted Facebook from her phone and just uses it in the browser. in Safari on our iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And use your smart devices too. I mean, like I have a watch that I can set do not disturb on, and I have like a theater mode, so I can just switch into theater mode. And so a lot of times I'll do that when I'm talking with somebody, because that it even sets my phone to do not disturb, so that I'm not getting any notifications if I'm having an engaged conversation and I really want to focus and not be distracted by my phone buzzing at me.
Right.
I'll set that. And turn off the notifications, for crying out loud. Don't let the notifications push to your phone just because they can.
Right.
It might be a default setting, but you can change it. You can go in and shut that down and make it so that you have to go check the app if it has updated.
I have that for all my social media. None of them can actually alert me that someone has commented or pinged me or whatever. But I also limit notifications in general in all communications. And I have different focus modes. I have a podcasting focus mode, so nothing gets through, obviously. But I also have like a work day focus mode where my family likes to, and some of my friends, like some of the folks that in the scout troops that my kids are part of, they'll sometimes get in these text message conversations and bing, 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 bing. Ah, stop. I can't ignore it. It just impinges. And so I silence everything, all those notifications, so that I don't have to deal with them. So limit notifications totally as much as you can. The other thing too is don't check your social media first thing in the morning or just before you go to bed. Because for one thing, just before you go to bed, that you're going to have a terrible night's sleep that way. Like don't stare at your phone just before you go to sleep. I read before I go to sleep. I read on a Kindle, but it's not a blue screen, it's e-ink, so I think it's supposed to be different. But I think in general, they've even found that if you look at your phone or screen, like a computer screen, an iPad, whatever, just before you go to sleep, it makes you sleep worse. But also just don't check it first thing in the morning when you get up. Take some time. Go, take your shower, get a cup of coffee, then check your messages, because there's nothing that happened overnight on your social media that is going to be any different in 20 minutes or half an hour than it is now. So just have a little bit of, I think one important thing is discipline is a muscle that you exercise. And the more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes in all ways. Like discipline this is why we fast as Christians, because fasting, saying no to a physical hunger, helps us say no to other things as well. It becomes a discipline and teaches us to be able to say no to things that we want that we can't have at this time. And so that's I think that's the same way. So I would recommend that.
I think another thing that's can be healthy just from an outlook is don't feel bad about using social media. Like you need to take steps to curate it and make sure that it's beneficial for you and not negative. But I feel like there is kind of this attitude that social media is this bad thing, but everybody does it. And when you fall into that mindset, it's easier to just not set any limits for yourself or not really do anything to make it a better experience. Because your attitude is just like, well, it's bad, so I'm just going to use it and not actually use it in a positive way.
Right. It's kind of like junk food.
It's like indulging.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, it's like the more you consider it an indulging thing, the more you're likely to just kind of get drawn into exactly what the social media is designed to do.
Right. If you treat, a bag of Doritos as a treat that you let yourself have, and I'm going to have this much, and you are disciplined about it, you're much less likely to go, well, in for a penny, in for a pound, and then gobble the whole bag up because, you've not set any boundaries for yourself and you've already eaten half the bag. I think it's a very similar thing. You can treat things that are not good for you in large quantities. You could use them in moderation in all things. Right. So, so from the positive side, we need to, the next thing to do is to cultivate a positive community. And this is where, again, like Jack did earlier, promote the SQPN Discord. Our Discord community there is a shining example of how people can use social media in a positive, uplifting way that doesn't involve outrage. And we occasionally have to remind folks, remember, no politics. Like, I'm very quick on the trigger with that because I really, really don't want to avoid anything that will disturb the peace that we've built there, the comedy that we have with each other in this space, and it is a wonderful place of sharing and, talking about things we all enjoy and that sort of thing. And I really like that. There's much less vitriol, even in things like communities when it's not about politics, but like Star Wars, Star Wars fan communities can be so toxic because it's becomes, Disney evil. They've ruined Star Wars, and nothing good's can ever come out of Disney Star Wars. And it's just like, can we just enjoy the Ahsoka series and Mandalorian?
Right.
So that's what we have in the StarQuest Discord is a community that's very positive.
I would say our podcasts too. Like that's one of the things I think I'm going to blow my own horn here and say that the Middle Earth podcast is fantastic. But part of the fantastic of it is that it's a very moderate voice in the midst of like the extremes of either being very much fans of the kind of new crazy stuff and very much against the new crazy stuff.
Right.
Like finding the middle ground there is very challenging, but I feel like we've done a really good job of that. And that seems to be kind of around the board at SQPN. Like it's
definitely,
there's not an extremism sense.
That has been a key aspect of what we do here, which is avoid the mindless negativity. Finding the positive in all the good things. Yeah, I know Tolkien fandom is divided. It's like three camps. You have the book purists, the Jackson fans, and then Rings of Power is the best. And it's like, that's what I love about you guys on the Secrets of Middle Earth is you guys love all of it. And you enjoy it for what it is. And you take the good and the bad and you recognize it, but there's still something to enjoy. And I think that's very positive. So one thing I'll suggest is if you surround yourself with people who post the right sorts of things, and you engage with them, you like their stuff, you comment on it, that sort of thing, that does goose the algorithm. If you create lots of engagement around positive things, it gooses the algorithm to show you more positive things. Like we said earlier, the algorithm responds to high engagement. And right now, high engagement comes from the negativity. So it's in all of our best interest for all of us to try to do much more engagement with positive stuff. So music, books, art, TV shows we enjoy, prayer, all that sort of stuff. If you want more of that in your various feeds and the algorithms serve stuff, engage with it.
Yeah. I think also there too, on any of the services where you can subscribe to things, find the subscription list of things that come up. So like with YouTube, I have it set up so that I don't even look at the front page. I just go to the subscription page because it's all of the things that I've subscribed to and the latest videos that they've uploaded.
Right. Yes, I agree. In fact, I use a third-party app that I think was a pick of the week on the Mac called Play, where I can put links to all videos I plan on watching. And I think it's like 800 links in there now. And then I just kind of avoid the front page of YouTube altogether with that. But yeah, if you subscribe to people and you just go to your subscribe page, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, honestly, that's the only way to use Reddit.
Right.
Oh, definitely. 100%.
Yes. Just to go to your specific subreddits that you've subscribed to. Yeah. And then when you do contribute, stay positive. Don't engage negativity. Avoid the outrage machine. I no longer engage with people who want to get angry and argue with me. I've realized that, in most cases, no matter what I say, I'm not changing the person's mind. When they're angry and outraged and yelling at me, they're in no condition to agree with me. There's no way I can change there's not any argument I can make in a comment box that will change anything. And convincing one person on the internet that I'm right doesn't change the world, So stay positive and avoid negativity.
And I want to also bring up this. Once you've reached 2 substrings of a comment section, you're not playing for an audience anymore.
Yes.
So don't think that you're trying to win an argument for anyone else that's listening. After you've made the first point and they've made the first counterpoint, nobody's paying attention anymore but you and that person that you're talking to.
Right. The back and forth. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've gotten into those and realized that's at a point like everyone else is left. Like it's like being at a party and getting into an argument and then turning around and there's nobody else in the room anymore because you've scared them all away.
Yeah,
exactly.
Something that if you ever find yourself in that situation where it's best just not to get in those in the first place, but if you do, reach out to the person that you're talking to privately. And if you actually want to have a conversation about it, that is usually a much more fruitful way to discuss it with them, because at that point your guard will be down on both sides because you're talking one-on-one. And even if it doesn't end up positively, you can just reach out and say, hey, we disagree on this, but I don't hate you as a person and I still value you as a person. Like you can even with one of those negative interactions, you can put some positivity in there.
Be Christ to people,
Exactly.
That's how, it's become a cliche now, but how would Christ interact with someone? Even if he disagreed, he would at least show them love and charity. So we did talk a little bit about the idea of a digital detox. I think we'll do another episode just on this topic at some point, but like take breaks. I know a lot of people take a break for Lent from social media, or when you're on vacation. Yeah, I know it's tempting to want to share pictures that, hey, check out this awesome place I'm at on vacation. But maybe wait till you come back and share your pictures. Mm-hmm. And then you're not telling everyone in the world that your house is empty. And then even other times too, like take other breaks as well. Just, and take off weekends sometimes, or just Sunday. Don't go on social media for Sunday, but don't find times to be away. But we can get into that on a deeper level at another point as well. So I kind of want to wrap up things. With 2 points. Find your edification, well-being, inspiration, and grace be outside of social media as well. Books, podcasts, offline, real-world activities that you can engage in are all good ways to find that social interaction you need. I know, sometimes it depends on where you live and whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, and it can be hard, but there's also ways to receive that edification that doesn't involve interacting with other people, if that's a problem too. So look for that. And this isn't a one-time thing, curating your social media. It's a continuous process. You're going to be doing this, as long as you have social media, which it looks like this is a pretty permanent part of our society at this point. So any other bits of advice as we want to wrap up? Anything we didn't catch in that list?
I guess it's okay to say you're wrong if you ever get in any sort of argument. You don't always have to have the last word.
Right. Mm-hmm. You don't always have to have the last word, and you can admit being wrong. I think both of those are very important, mature ways to approach things. That's for sure.
And you don't even have to do that. You can sometimes just say, I'm not sure this is going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Just say, I am stepping away from this conversation. Thank you. Have a good day.
And sometimes if you just don't respond, if you just leave, if it's a contentious back and forth, if you just don't comment, add another comment, it just dies there. It's just, that's it. And no one notices, and it just goes away. Don't feel like that there's some need that there has to be some kind of closure. There doesn't.
Yeah. I also like the idea that you don't have to be on a platform. And I want to remind everyone of that, because it's very hard when you're not on Facebook, and the organizations that you're a part of are, and that's how they currently get information, to distribute information to people. And it's like, I did not know about this event because you did not share it anywhere but on Facebook, and I am not on Facebook. And just remind the organizations that you're a part of that that's what's happening.
They need to find ways to connect with you. That's their responsibility to find ways to connect beyond one platform. That's true. All right. So we'd love to hear any thoughts that you have, any advice that you have on curating your social media, what has worked for you, or any real world examples that you may have. We'd love to hear from you. You can email us at technology@sqpn.com. So before we move on, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Mary S., Julie M., SB Writing, Barbara G., and Kimberly W. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So we've got some headlines here we want to talk about. And the first one, this was kind of an interesting one to me. So the war, it involves a very serious subject, which is the war in Ukraine. but the Ukrainian military has developed a tool that they now are using Steam Decks, the Valve handheld gaming device, to control machine gun turrets, which the article says machine gun turrets. They're just remotely operated automatic weapons. So it looks like it's not like they're running a game in the Steam store to shoot at things. It looks like the Steam Deck is essentially just a Linux computer, a handheld Linux computer, and looks like they've developed software that runs on them, that Linux software that allows them to use the screen to put up a visual image and to aim the weapon and to fire it using a solenoid triggering device, which keeps the soldiers safe in a trench or inside a vehicle or a pillbox while they're, instead of exposed. What do y'all think of this? This is kind of an interesting development where a game device has been, used on a battlefield.
I think this is just part of the reason I like the Steam Deck so much, because it is such an open piece of hardware. You can do literally anything with it.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so everyone's clear, it's not like this is not a specific to Steam Deck thing. It's you could do this with a Raspberry Pi if you if you were really putting it together. But the Steam Deck comes with all of the pieces already attached and pre-made, and probably a very simple way to just program for it. So kudos on them for figuring out how to make the best of a bad situation and use the resources. And this is not very, very different from the way that drones are controlled currently by our military even. Yeah.
It's essentially a drone operated gun, and it's not autonomous. It's not, targeting on its own. There's a human operator at the controls. It's no different from, it goes without saying, it's a terrible thing that a weapon has to be used on another human being at all. But in the case of the Ukrainians who are trying to defend their land against an invasion, kudos for them for coming up with such a clever use of off-the-shelf technology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so to something that lifts our eyes beyond the horizon, the next headline, the Vast, which is a company, says it will launch its first space station in 2025 on a Falcon 9. Vast is a private aerospace company that is developing a space station, basically a module that will fit inside of Falcon 9. And it will launch in 2025, and then a cruise aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon will fly up, and the Crew Dragon capsule itself will provide a lot of the life support and power for this commercial station. What do you guys think of this?
I think it's awesome. I think this is the future of spaceflight, and I think we're seeing that just how much reusable rocketry has brought down the cost of doing something like this.
Yeah, a private venture to do a space station is just, I wouldn't have even thought. And they just started this company. So, I mean, I'm assuming they're in their earliest rounds of funding. I haven't had much time to look into them a lot. But they're newbies. Like, this is not a long-standing group that's been around forever. I think it was founded in like 2021. So, like, it's a bunch of pandemic people getting together like, let's go to space because that's cool.
Yeah.
The guy behind it is a big early pioneer in blockchain tech. So Bitcoin being used for something good at this point. And so he's a billionaire, and he's hired some guys from SpaceX who have lots of knowledge in life support and that sort of stuff. So they're bringing that expertise with them. But I love this idea because NASA is talking about the ISS is going to be retired by 2030. And after that, their plan is to use commercial space stations, the privately owned space stations, for doing the stuff that we're doing now. And this first space station is only the prototype, and it's going to be a little bit small. Like, the module is a little smaller than the modules that make up the space station, but they're also developing one that can fit in the Starship that they're still developing. And that will be twice as big as the modules, twice as wide, like the diameter, which means it'll be able to do so much more. There'll be so much more room inside. I almost said space inside, but space is on the outside. So much more room inside for various things. I do find it interesting that they're selling the seats on the first flight, so people can. I think that's partly how they're funding things. So this isn't going to be their people flying up to it. Like, would you go on one of the first flights to a brand new space station? I'm not sure I would want to go
If I wasn't
be the
married,
first guy
yes.
in. Right.
I probably still would. If we're honest, if you gave me the opportunity, yes, I would probably go.
I think it's awesome. I think we've entered into this new era of space travel that is what we've looked at for years, decades of this is what the future of space travel will be. Will private enterprise in space and it won't be all just government people in space. And so I'm looking for that. One thing they talk about is they keep talking about VAST wants to develop an artificial gravity space station, which I'm pretty sure doesn't mean they're trying to defy the laws of physics, but they probably mean centrifugal force.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that hasn't been done. Like, that's not something that we've solved for yet in certain ways. So it would be interesting to see. And I think if they got this big piece in the Starship to go up, that they might be able to really start moving towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody's interested, I just want to hype it again. The Kerbal Space Program is a great way to learn about how to do this kind of stuff and with real game physics, because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it's really complicated.
It's a great way to learn how hard it is, definitely.
Exactly.
I gotta get my boys on that because they will love that sort of thing. So speaking of space, there's a open source group of skywatchers, UFO hunters, who are building a system to scan the skies. It's called the Sky 360 Project, and they want to build a worldwide network of automated cameras that watch the skies for, as we say these days, unidentified aerial phenomena, or what we used to call UFOs, because, as they put it, government can't be trusted to tell us when they see these things. And at the heart of this is a crowdsourced plan of schematic of equipment that's easy to purchase anywhere in the world that you can put together and with cameras and the whole thing. And it's sort of like this system in a box, and then you set it up and it scans the skies. And the idea is they want to scan the entire sky. What do you think? Is this a little too far-fetched or something you'd love to see grow?
I think that this is the first step in either confirming or disproving these kind of things. Obviously, more cameras pointed at the sky, the better. And the best way to parse through all that data, because it's going to be an insane amount of data, is the ability of AI to process through this stuff and pull out what's going to be useful. They've already started doing that with those giant, like, thousands of megapixel images that you get from telescopes, and identifying things that a human would not have identified because it's very tiny or it's anomalous and it's not really going to show up when you're just looking at it. But if you run it through like an AI system or a large, like with the quantum computers they have, you're able to parse much more of that data and actually pull out things that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Yeah,
the part of the system is a software called Simple Tracker, which is a machine language analysis program that it trains on the trajectories of normal flying objects like planes, birds, or insects, and then tries to classify objects based on the movement. And if something is anomalous, it's flagged for human review. And so this is the key, is to weed out. That's the thing, is to weed out the vast majority of stuff that is just normal and key in on the very, very, very few anomalous things. I want one at Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes.
The other interesting part of this is the guy who's one of the founders of this project. He was part of a similar project before called Sky Hub, but it had this guy Hopf is European, but these were Americans that he was working with who had ties to U.S. intelligence, whatever that means. It's very vague. But he said they abruptly shut the program down, and he thinks it was because the U.S. intelligence wanted them to not be staring at the sky, everywhere in the sky looking for anomalous objects, i.e. very secret American flying things. I think is the idea. But that's if you gotta be up there and you can't be seen, you just got to do a better job then. So, right. I think that's the way it is.
I mean, if a camera's going to catch you, you already lost the game, right? That's
exactly.
Turn on your cloak.
Well, there is a patent for that from a scientist at the China Lake naval weapons station out in China Lake, Nevada, I think it is, or California. This guy, Salvatore Pais, has patents for things like cloak, shielding, anti-grav generators, like crazy sci-fi stuff. He's a Navy scientist who has these patents and is as official part of his job. Disinformation?
You know where he got them from, though, right? Yeah, Scotty had to trade him the information to build the transparent aluminum for the whales.
Exactly, that's what it is. The transparent aluminum. Why do you think he didn't invent it, laddie? Oh, Keybird, how quaint. So, and then let's see. I think that'll do it for this week for our headlines. We're kind of going a little long, so I want to move on directly to our picks of the week. And Thomas, why don't you take your first pick of the week?
All right, so mine's kind of a I don't know. I mean, you may have gotten it already, but maybe not. And if you haven't, then I definitely highly recommend it. I use Great Clips to go and get my hair cut, and they have an app, and you can use that app to sign in and avoid any kind of wait when you get to your haircut place of choice. So whatever that may be, I recommend that you see if they do have an app. But one of the great things about mine is that it will tell me of the 3 locations that are nearby to me. It'll tell me what the wait is at each of them. And so I can pick the one that makes the most sense for me. So if I need a haircut now, I can just click the button for the one that's most proximate and do, or if I have a couple of errands to run and want to know where my haircut's going to fall in there, it'll say, oh, there's a 30-minute wait at this particular spot. So I'll just grab a slot there. I'll go out and do my errands and then walk into my haircut at the right time.
Very nice. So Great Clips is a chain of barbershops, hair salons, however you want to call it. And they have this app to make appointments. That's awesome. That's cool. My wife cuts my hair, so I cheap out on that. And as you can tell, I don't have as these guys can see on the video, I don't have a very complicated haircut. But I love the idea of these companies making it more convenient for them and for us with these apps that let us, figure things out and help them by not burdening them, by having us show up and going, hey, can you take me now? That sort of stuff.
Right.
I love that. That's cool. So Great Clips.
And it's fun because you walk in and you say, and they say, did you check in online? And you just give them your name, and there you go. You're the next one in line. So as soon as someone hops up, you're in.
Nice. Excellent. So Jack, what's your pick this week?
My pick this week is something that is more on the expensive side for something you wouldn't think is expensive, which I usually try to avoid, but is the Whitestone Dome Glass Screen Protector for the Pixel 7 Pro. I've had this phone for about 9 months, and something that always bugged me about it was the fact that it has like a curved screen, which looks really nice, but it makes it very hard to find a screen protector that'll actually work. And I tried a few of the cheaper ones, and they end up falling off or flaking off after like a couple days. This one it's $40 for a screen protector, which is pretty expensive. And when you get it, it's this insane contraption that has this ultraviolet light emitter. It's got this like shell thing. You put the phone in, you have to put the phone down, put on these damping pads. It comes with this liquid that you put in a dispenser that the glue is separate from the actual screen protector. It pours it onto the screen, and then you have to align the curved screen protector on the device, and then you have to cure it with this light. So it's like a whole operation. But it actually works, which is nice. I've put it on about a week ago, and it's still on. It hasn't started bubbling or flaking or anything. And I was honestly surprised that it worked, but it seems like a good investment if you don't want to get your curved screen cracked. So.
And the tempered glass protectors are so much better than the plastic things.
Yes.
They feel better. Yeah. And tempered glass is like what's on your car. It's harder. By the way, I don't know if it's true for you guys, but when I went to this on Amazon, there's a $10 coupon, so you can get it for $30.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I don't know how long that'll last, but it's even cheaper. So my pick this week is a little bit of speaking of discipline, an app that I picked up. I've been trying to do more intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is where you only eat within a particular period of time each day, and that can vary for everyone. I tend to skip breakfast. So I try to go from dinner to the next day's lunch without eating, to varying degrees of effectiveness. And so one thing I think that helps me, just knowing myself, is when I kind of gamify it. When so what this app is called Zero. It's very basic, and I wanted a very basic app for this. I tried several different fasting apps. So this is a basic one. And what it does is you just open it up, and then you tell it, I want to start a fast now. And so you say start fasting, and then it will start counting. And you can give it your goal, like when do I want to stop? Or you can have it as an amount of time, like 16 hours or 12 hours, or you give it, you give it a specific time, tomorrow at noon, and it will give you updates as you go along. Hey, you're doing great. A couple more hours, or you're coming to the end of your fast, and hey, the time's up. You can go eat now if you wish, that sort of thing. And it does some other things. It tries to have you, what's your mood like right now, and sort of that sort of stuff if you want to do it. But if you just want to be tracking your fast, this is a very nice, easy tool for it called Zero. And it even has like a dashboard widget for you if you want, a screen widget for you if on the iPhone, if you want to use that. So Zero. And it's from zerolongevity.com.
I would also say, if you want to learn more about intermittent fasting, I'm pretty sure there's a Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World episode about that.
Yes, the mystery of weight loss, which is... I think it's episode. Oh, I'm not going to try to do that off the top of my head. Let me. I'll put it in the show notes. But it was an early one. We did it in the early. I think it's 69 or 70, somewhere around there. I'll put the link to it in the show notes. It's a good point. Folks might want to know that. So Jimmy has lost a lot of weight by doing intermittent fasting, and is much healthier for it. And he gives a lot of good resources, books to read about the health benefits in that show. So there are some definite health benefits. All right. So that should do it for us this time. We would love to hear what you thought of any parts of our discussion, which you can do by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology. Or if you choose to use Facebook, StarQuest Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com, or definitely come visit us at the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You can find all the links from our show, the discussion, and our picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC216. That's Tech 216, the show 216. Remember to like each episode of Secrets of Tech wherever you find us on social media when you're there, and leave us comments. We love to hear from you wherever you find us. Until next time, Jack Barazzini, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Dom.
And Thomas and Herho, thank you as well.
Been a pleasure.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.